hired Mr. Stark.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Can you feel it? Nothing can save you, because this is the season for catching the vapors. And since I got time, what I'm going to do, let me introduce you to my crew. I am your host for the night, Roddykat. You thought it was going to go any farther than that. Nope, you're wrong. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CB Caps on Instagram and News Nerds Needs Reddit. And you all know, I was about to call him TJ Swansea. I was about to screw it up right then. There. Agent_70 on Instagram and Twitter.
What's up, everybody?
And sadly, no Big Daddy Kane is in the house with us. And nor do we have PCN_Dirt, who is a PCN_Dirt on Twitter, and popculturenetwork.com, popculturenet on Twitter, and all of his satellite websites therein. And also, he's not Bismarcky, so can't even do that to him. Tim, DOGG98, the Osiris of this ish. He's at that address on, he's not at the Osiris of the stuff, but Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter. CB Cron on Twitter. The Click Nation on Twitter. That's DKLIQNATION and theclicknation.com. But of course, his claim to fame, what got everybody knowing his name, over on Comic Book Resources, where he's writing his face off. And not that terrible movie that Travolta and what's his face did, Cage. But you can find this here program on. Thank you. That was very much undeserved, but thank you anyway. You can find this podcast on CSPN.us. That's the Cold Slither Podcast Network.
Do it today.
And you can also subscribe to this podcast on Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, although I ain't no telling how long they're going to do iTunes anymore.
Right, iTunes being phased out, it's just going to be Apple Podcasts.
Yep, pretty much. Also, Spotify and the CSPN's SoundCloud page. And with that, all of that out of the way, we will get into, like we do all the at this time, all the damn this week's comics.
Yay!
And we are going to start off with, I dare say, without spoiling it, potential click of the week for a couple of the folks.
Right.
Stuff included. Justice League number 25.
Right. So this is a pretty important issue in when taken in the grand scheme of things, because we've seen teasers and lead-ups to this event, the summer event going into the fall event for DC called Year of the Villain. And before we get to the story that's in the pages of Justice League number 25, bear in mind that we only had the vaguest idea of what the Year of the Villain might entail, but we actually have a bit of a framework established in this issue. So if you're curious, you may want to read this. It helps explain what happened in the Free Comic Book Day and the 25-cent issue.
Yeah, which I don't remember. I remember kind of thumbing through, but didn't read it. And yeah, definitely not since issue 22 have we gotten an issue as important as this.
Right.
So, that whole, probably going to skip ahead just one quick second. That whole, after the main thing where the whole Year of the Villain stuff comes in, almost felt like an end credit scene.
Yeah.
Just a lengthy one.
Yes.
Because obviously this was a double-sized issue, and it pretty much wrapped up well, not even pretty much, but it wrapped up the Justice League in the sixth dimension or whatever dimension they were in.
Right.
And them getting back home and also getting a new member, it looks like.
Right. That was a weird turn of events. So
Right.
just to give everyone a quick recap, so the Justice League have been dealing with plots, over the course of Snyder's 25-issue run so far on the Justice League. He's been building to this. So there have been a couple of plot lines that have been thread through this book and kind of picking up on the threads from Dark Knight's Metal. So, there are these kind of, I guess there's this one ancient being called Perpetua, and Perpetua had children, two of whom we're familiar with, the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, and the third of whom we were just introduced to. It's called the Forger of Worlds. And, there's all sorts of, world-shaping shenanigans going on with these characters. And the reason why Perpetua has been heretofore unknown to us and has been retconned into existence. That has all been explained over the last number of issues. Now we're dealing with some stuff happening in the sixth dimension, as Roddykat mentioned, and dealing with the alternate universe, possible alternate timelines, and we find the Justice League trying to get out of a trap that has been laid for them. And that's where we find the main story focus coming to, basically coming to a conclusion in the first half of this issue.
Right, and part of that trap was kind of sort of laid, but you kind of figure it was a ruse, which it kind of was, by one Batman,
right?
Who basically plays his cards out, but it turned out it wasn't so much of a ruse in that he kind of played on the World Forger's sensibilities, I guess, for lack of a better word, because you seemingly see Batman kind of change sides, which he did, but he didn't.
Right.
Because while he did believe in the vision of what World Forger was doing, he was also doing it in service of, helping out his team, which was a weird way to go about it, but it worked out. So I was like, huh, okay.
Right. He was kind of playing on Superman coming to save the day, which is hysterical. Right. Because I'm like, wait a second, what kind of battle plan is that, Bats?
But it also shows, but it was also like, yeah, the power of friendship, and which is something that man,
Right. It reminded me. I mean, obviously, it's not a battle plan because there's a little bit more strategy involved, but it kind of makes me chuckle. There's an issue, and I love to reference it just as a quick aside. There's an issue of the Incredible Hulk, issue number 300, where he's already, the Hulk has basically lost any sort of vestige of Bruce Banner at that point. And the Avengers are tasked with trying to stop him rampaging through the streets of Manhattan. And the Avengers have like an order of battle, right? Where the Vision is calling out a strategy. And the strategy is basically, all right, let all the weaker Avengers do some stuff to the Hulk and try to, well, not necessarily weaker, because he uses Captain Marvel to try to shock the Hulk into turning back to Bruce Banner with gamma radiation. Doesn't work. But at the end of the day, he tries all these strategies, all these stratagems, and Thor comes out and says, all right, the Vision told me to hang back because, I'm the last line. So here I am, I'm the last line of defense. So this is the Vision's grand plan. Let's throw everything at him. And if all else fails, we have Thor. So that kind of made me, it kind of made me laugh. Thinking about Batman's plan, like, all right, we're going to go along with all this, but I'm really hoping that Superman comes and saves my butt.
Right.
I'm kind of laying something out for him, but I'm really hoping he can figure it out,
Right. I was about to say by putting him in a situation in the first place, but actually that wasn't him. It was World Forger who did it. He just kind of played with what was given.
Right.
So. But yeah, that all being said, it's like, yeah, everybody was doing their thing and fighting. The Justice League was basically fighting their future, quote unquote, future selves. And then the battle plan kind of hinged on, like Agent 70 said, just kind of hinged on Superman being able to get back to the crew,
True.
like a light beacon. Now, my only thing was when Superman got back into it, and I think there's been an article before. I have seen an article about this recently, but when he came in, which there was a couple of good splash pages, by the way, from that. But when he came in and essentially landed the blow at ground zero, it seemingly took out a whole, like, pretty much everything within. Well, pretty much everything. It looks like the whole place was decimated. There were a bunch of people at ground zeros that were still there, like nothing happened. So I'm sitting here like, okay, I know it was kind of sort of directional, but everybody was kind of scrambling to get out of the way. But it seemed like that, that punch seemed nuclear with power, the way it was expressed.
Yeah,
and they were still pretty much close, and everybody was pretty much still close enough to be,
wiped out.
wrecked about it. So I'm like, okay, you know what, comics, we're just gonna let that slide.
Right, like they didn't even, what the standard. The standard is at the resident GL, the resident Lantern throws up a shield.
You would think,
right? But they don't show that at all.
Right. Because when they showed him, it was like he was pretty much scrambling, just like everybody else. And exactly, that would normally what we have. But even then, well, a Green Lantern's shield has never necessarily held up to what's the seemingly power of that, which was given out. Or at least not for that long, but okay, maybe it could have been from together. There was shit, and
right. I absolutely understand where you're coming from, because I was reading that like, so they all survived,
right?
So
I'm like, okay, you know what? Sure. So we'll just. And
then after that was the part that got me, because even you mentioned it. So after he lays, he lays a Friday punch on him.
Right.
Shout out to was it Tiny Lister? I think it is. He lays a Friday punch on him.
Deboed
him. Right, he deboed him. Superman deboes the World Forger, and he knocked him into next Friday, and. Basically, after all that, it's, hey, you want to join up with us?
Right. And I was like, record scratch. What? Oh.
Seriously.
Which their explanation.
Spoiler alert, because that's really the biggest spoiler from this part of the book. I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize. I should have rang it before I mentioned that, because it just got me so off the hook. Like, what are they talking about?
I mean, it was going to go one way or the other. I honestly didn't, just like you imagine, did not expect it to go that way. But at the same time, when they started explaining it, I was like, okay, wait, really? They're going to have him? Nope, they did. They had him join up. It was just like, nah, we're not going to fight you. Join us. Like,
what is going on?
Which I'm assuming maybe that's going to play out in this Year of the Villain. Something's going to play out of that. Or they'll get back to it after the year. Actually, no, I take it back because it's kind of a part of it. Because so going forward into Luthor's plan, which has been laid out, which was Perpetua's plan, that she needed power, not unlike Bobbity trying to resurrect Boo. For you Dragon Ball Z fans, she needed a bunch of power so that she may live and get enough to get enough power to come back to the world. And the way Luthor did it was to send out Mixoplex, which, well, actually it wasn't Luthor, but apparently somebody sent out Mixoplex, and then Luthor and crew saved the world with Batmite. But while the Justice League was gone, that was enough to kind of, at the very least, get the world in play, which will give, once Luthor's plan gets out there, give her the energy she will need. So now that the Justice League is back, and this has already been laid out there before they got back, they have an uphill battle. So I guess the World Forger stuff is going to come into play within all of that. Because, there was like, well, World Forger's like, hey, I can get my brothers to help because we fought Perpetua before. So, and, we know what she needs. and seen. So, which, like I said, leads into them coming back and seeing the state of the world and going into whatever this year the villain thing is going to be.
Right. So I'm totally going to ring the spoiler bell again because I just wanted to get into the concept here.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, while the Justice League were away in the 6th dimension, the Legion of Doom and Batmite took out Mxyzptlk, and Luthor gets on the interwebs and says, "Hey, guess what? The world's coming to an end." Right? You know, because of the whole Source Wall thing, and it's all the Justice League's fault.
You're right. He basically damned on the Justice League and
right.
let people know about everything that's been going on since I guess Dark Knight's Metal.
Right. So they screwed up. So you know what? He basically says, I'm going to give away all my money. I'm going to, distribute all my weapons and scientific breakthroughs to the people he thinks will make better use of them, to the people who will show us the way to save ourselves. So, you can choose justice or you can choose doom. And that's the path that's the choice that he's giving them, the false choice. And, basically it's almost like the Purge. That's what I was trying to come up with an idea, like a similar idea, and that's what it almost sounds like. It sounds like that he's trying to start a worldwide purge.
Oh, surely, yeah. Again, and all this is
we were discussing this just before the show.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you. Hold on to your thought. And
right.
I was, and for whatever reason, that was on the tip of my tongue, and it just wouldn't come forth. So I apologize. That's the sort of why I'm kind of like, whoa, that's what I've been thinking of. It sounds like, like reading the last page now while we were trying to summarize it. Like, wait a second, that's kind of what this is.
Yeah, but and as I said earlier, there is also some similarities with at least one other DC event. At least a small ways in there, because this kind of reminds me of what happened during the course of 52, where while he didn't give away all his money and stuff, he basically gave people powers, a bunch of people, everybody powers, but in spoiler alert, at the end of that, kind of put it back. I mean, kind of took it back, which I can't imagine that's not going to happen in this. But like I said, there was some small thing kind of similar to that, and yeah, the Purge is pretty much an interesting analogy, one that actually works a lot better. But and we also found out, like, during the course of which again, like I said earlier before we did this, you read this and it even has a footnote for the Free Comic Book Day stuff and the Year of the Villain special. The one shot that came out earlier last month, which you might want to read if you didn't already do so, because it touches on something that happens then and basically brings you forward. So, but of course, the stuff that happens in that, at least one thing kind of didn't happen the way you would think it did, because obviously it wasn't going to. Because even when they started talking about it, it was like, wait, because did I even know that happened? I'm like, no, because I didn't read that issue. But even then, I'm like, there's no way in the world that stuck,
right?
Or even happened, in any meaningful fashion. And sure enough, was right, because we see 2 of the Legion of Doom in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the old Super Friends days. One coming out of some chamber, and the other one's just kind of like, yep, everything's in place, and there you go. Everything kind of goes out and goes from there.
Pretty much. So ultimately, this is, I thought, a pretty good kickoff to this event.
Mm-hmm. Got me interested.
Right, and I know that it got Tim Dog 98 very interested. And I think I got PCN _ Dirt interested, even though it put him to sleep today. Oh no!
Sometimes after a good book you will end up going to sleep.
So, but yeah, no, it was a very interesting read. So, it's one of the very few times where DC wasn't losing today or hasn't been losing recently. So I'm all right with with giving them a little bit of fanfare today.
Actually, it won't be the only one this week. Actually, but we will get to that in probably a few.
All right. What's in Bartlett?
So let's get to an event that's in progress, and that would be World of the Realms number 5.
Yes.
So, I've kind of slightly had a change of heart about the main book, because it feels like the main book is just basically serving recaps into everything else, which we may have actually been saying.
Right.
That it's the main book's pretty much been serving recap to everything else that's been going on in the other main books, and that still kind of holds true in this, because it pretty much, but and also at the same time you see, well, clearly some missions are over with or something, because you see some people that are in other minis surrounding that. Well, I guess you could say, depending on the timing, probably shouldn't be in the place that they were in, right? Unless that their part of the mission was over, which more likely, with the main book probably would be, and everything else is kind of feeding to it. So it kind of could go both ways. But that being said,
right, but to serve as like the main engine of the story,
right?
They just have to keep chugging forward with the characters that they need. So they put them into the places that they need. So continue.
So, and speaking of engine, and I felt like I missed something. I almost went back to 4 and reread it, to thinking, because wait a minute, when did some of this stuff happen? But then I forgot that, hey, some of this stuff is also coming out of other miniseries, so maybe didn't necessarily miss something, but it was probably something I hadn't read yet, or whatever the case. So all of the fronts are being served, and served well, because you see, bits and pieces going on from different parts of the world and different parts of the book, including, I guess you could say, at least one from this week. I don't know, but everything gets touched on. But there's also kind of a main throughput having to do with Thor, and by some extent, and by extension, which we know was going to happen anyway, Jane Foster, because Thor is pretty much. This is pretty much leading to the last battle with Malekith, basically, essentially, with the lives of his parents, kind of, hanging, not necessarily hanging on by a thread, but in the balance. So this is basically Thor getting to the point to where, he's trying to figure something out. Something happens to the World Tree. Yggdrasil.
That was very surprising.
Right, exactly.
Art-wise, the way they pulled that off was like, whoa.
Right.
And shout out to Russell Dowderman and Matt Wilson on that one.
Right. I was like, that you wouldn't think something like that would be able to get pulled off, but
it is magic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So,
but seeing the visual, what Roddykat is referring to is a visual that you can't actually believe. Even in comics, it's kind of one of those things you're just like, oh, that is funky. And it's on the first page.
Right.
And it's kind of developed, the concept is developed as they explain what on earth is going on. So,
or in this case, not on Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Or what actually is going on.
So which leads Thor with Sans sunscreen on a mission to Yggdrasil, while everybody else is doing their thing. But also the weird thing about it is, you see Thor in a few different places during the course of this book, and I'm assuming there is either a time jump or that's what
there's definitely there's a now and a then.
Right. So, and I was thinking, well, something I feel like I missed, because I see all this going on, but at the same time he's going to do this thing in the now, and then they kind of cut back, and then they go back to the now, and then the rest of it kind of goes from there. It's like, okay, but clearly this is what's happening when Thor got back into the fight.
Right. What I was going to say is I think the gist of it was, and I'm glad that we had a chance to kind of step away from it and then talk about it, because I agree. I think Thor getting back into the fight was the end of 4.
Right.
And now we've gotten the after effects of that, and then Thor kind of going off on a separate mission afterwards.
Right.
Like they've kind of turned the tide a little bit, but in order to really win the war, Thor has to do something else.
Right. Yeah, and of course, as it tends to do in these things, the big final battle has to happen, which is leading up into the next issue.
Right.
And sure enough, while we don't get to that point yet, but everything up into before that point is there. So we see Thor going through his thing, and at the same time, we get to see Jane Foster, who's fighting the battle in her own way as the All Mother, and she has Gungnir and doing her thing with the people she's with. But at a certain point in the now, while Thor is going through his ordeal, she goes through something, which was also kind of weird in itself, because it was like, I was like, wait, that thing she picked up seems familiar from a classic Thor standpoint, but knowing what she's going to end up being, I'm like, nothing like that has been ever needed to be the case.
Right. It's a weird amalgam of things, because I'm not sure if what we're talking about, spoiler alert. I'm not sure if what we're talking about is actually going to be the final product, what she's going to become. So we all, unfortunately, we know what's going to happen because we read solicits, and we have to order comics ahead of time because we're good customers like that. So we know that Jane Foster's story is not over. The story as Thor may be ending, but may not be over just yet. But what she picks up are the remnants of the War Thor's hammer, Volstag's hammer.
Okay, so that was the part I was missing, because I knew she picked it up. And matter of fact, yeah, because they had mentioned Volstagg when he was doing, being the War Thor. I was like, wow, I missed that one.
Right, because the Warhammer was calling, but not for me. There's that part where he's about to take over the Destroyer armor.
Right.
And that's what, it's kind of like it's not clear. It's only clear if I hate to say this, if you've been reading Thor, like if you put that part together.
Sure.
From the pages of Thor.
If you've been reading Thor before this stuff happened.
Right, exactly. If you've been reading, and remember that War Thor with the Volstagg stuff, it was like a year plus ago. Well, when Jane Foster was still running around as Thor. So it's been a while.
The War Thor. That's shit.
So ultimately, I'm pretty excited to see where this goes, because if anything, Aaron's been kind of unpredictable up until now. So we'll see how he wraps up this story.
It does have potential to end as epic as it started. For sure.
I agree.
So we will see.
And I was reading your notes. You would have seen Jane Foster's T-shirt in Thor prior to this event, but it wasn't straight out of Compton.
Okay.
It was straight out of Chemo.
Ah, which sure. Okay. For her, I see that. All right. Yeah, because I saw the straight out, I was like, okay, that clearly is the shirt that is modeled after, but I just couldn't read the last part of it, and I'm like, okay.
Right. She hasn't had time to change her wardrobe.
I mean, war starts.
Exactly. As soon as the war starts, that's it. They jump right in.
Right. Wait, I thought it was already in remission. Oh, so I guess because it was out of remission, and she just had to. Okay, never mind. Yeah,
right.
Because I'm about to say, because that whole chemo stuff had been dealt with last year.
Well, she'd been undergoing it, right? Once she stopped being Thor, right? Because remember the whole idea was that every time she became Thor,
it would burn that out. Right.
Exactly. All of the chemo, all the meds would just burn out of her system. Right. So she would be okay, but then as soon as she turned back, none of those meds would be in her system, and the cancer would be free to multiply.
So, right. Also, fuck cancer.
Right. So, but yeah, no, like this is exciting. I'm actually excited to see where this ends. I'm kind of disappointed that it's going to be, that we're still kind of catching up with the tie-ins to kind of finish up the stories, because it seems like you said, some of the tie-in stories are already finished by this point. By this issue. Like the Spidey's War of the Realm, the Spidey's League of the Realms book. Seems like it's already done, because he's dealing with his own group of converts.
Right. And yeah, exactly. It was like, wait, because I thumbed through that issue, or I thumbed through that, and I was like, okay, I need to go back and actually read it, because I'm like, I don't remember this happening. But and another book, I guess we can go ahead and get into right now.
Just real quick.
Sure.
Did you take a look at the image of the cover for the last issue?
Yes.
The Storm of Thors, where they bring in the future Thor.
Yes.
That's an obvious, like, wait a second, this is Aaron totally going for the gusto, like,
again, like
tying it all together.
Right. He plays with his stories, so
it's pretty cool. I'm just like, wait a second, we've been on this ride this whole time, and it's paying off, and it's a nice feeling.
Yeah. So, like I said, it has the potential of ending as epic as it started. We're hoping that it will. Side stuff aside. Speaking of side stuff, let us get into, if we're done with that.
Yep.
War of the Realms Journey into Mystery number 4, which is the penultimate issue of this mini. Which again, you would think this is the mission that I was referring to with Balder being on, which as of this issue is still on it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, by the time it catches up with War of the Realms number 5, probably War of the Realms number 6 will probably be out. But actually no, because it'll be 2 weeks. But this mission's almost over. So we finally get an explanation on Lausa.
Right.
Which given the source of how we hear this from, it makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, how does he know all this stuff? But then it just got explained by, it's like, I'm a dog, they don't pay any attention to me, and I just hear things. Which, I'm like, yep, probably, yeah, okay, I see that.
Shout out to Thor, one of the better characters to come out of Aaron's run.
I freaking love Thor. Thor is pretty awesome.
Shout out to Marvel Creative, like making talking dogs a thing.
The god of dogs.
Right. There's Thor and there's
Check on his name.
Yeah, exactly. What's the ghost dog from Doctor Strange again?
Oh yeah, Bats was in the
Bats.
Oh yeah, because that's right. Because I forgot to mention that from the main book. Yeah,
right.
Because there was a panel where Thor and Bats were like, they were basically trying to handle a person.
So yeah, shout out to Marvel Creative. Be like, hey, we're gonna make some talking pets now. It's like, all right.
Which Bats was like, poor Bats, because he can't really do anything. But it's like, yeah, I'll haunt you. Like, I'll hunt the heck out of you. And Thor's like, I will eat you. or as he likes to say, I am the best eater of witches ever.
Oh, gosh.
Well, he is the best eater of everything ever. But anyway, so yeah, journey into mystery number 4. We're, like I said, we get explanation in the Lausa. I think we pretty much have an issue. We have the explanation, even though it hasn't been said yet. But it's been noted as to how Ares knows where they are at all times. Because if from what we see from a particular panel or two suggests, we don't know why that's the case, but I guess we will find out next issue.
Right.
Because the person in question that we're talking about might be the one partially behind part of the shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, the crew ends up in Carson City because they're running low on funds, and of course, with their luck, they run into a convention full of henchmen. So they has this plan to go in, to go in Ocean's 11 style. At first, to play the slots, to gamble like normal. But then they see all these henchmen, like, you know what? We're just going to steal a whole bunch of money from them because it's a convention full of henchmen. Who cares? And then they get discovered, and a big battle blows out. And during the midst of the chaos, spoiler alert, also gets taken by Ares.
Mm-hmm.
Which, once again, seems by design. Given the panel, given a couple of panels, particularly the one where he actually has her. So, which leads, again, Thor being in this issue gets roughed up by Ares real quick, but he turns out to be fine. It's okay. And now that Ares has Lausa, and the crew is going to end up chasing them in whatever next issue. But I did enjoy it. This is also kind of a slight potential click to week for a couple of things. Because one, this mini has been pretty fun the whole way through.
Right. It's been longer than I think it should have been. A 5-week mini, but it's given it time to tell a fun story. That's the kicker. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's been all right, but yeah, I can see where they could have probably cut. It could have been cut.
This is the McElroys.
Yes, so as we said before,
these are the D&D guys, right?
Yes, amongst other things, but yes, they're from the Adventure Zone podcast, and formerly a couple of them formerly Polygon and whatever other stuff that they're getting into podcasting wise. Internet superstars, the McElroys. I dare say I want to say it's probably their dad writing the book of this, but I don't know because I know he's also got another book, if not out, coming out with Marvel pretty soon. Clint. I can't remember the name of it, but I think we'll probably be talking about it at some point, regardless. But regardless of how they're doing it, yeah, it is definitely them. So, yeah, that's pretty much the thing on that one. Like I said, it's a fun issue. We're getting into the last issue where, like I said, this is going to be the big face off with I guess Sindar and Ares, which I feel like heel turn coming.
Right.
I hate using that term because I'm not a wrestling fan, but
or face turn.
Yes, whichever one.
It'll be a face turn, right? If Ares goes good.
Yes.
Right. It'll be a face turn.
Yes. Thank you.
No worries.
So yeah. Spider-Man get it rain. I love that part.
What's that?
I said Miles made it rain, and everybody called attention to it.
Oh sure.
That part was pretty fun, where they were just in the casino wrecking havoc with all the hench people.
Poor hench people.
Yes. So
anyway, it's like I feel like I've punched this guy before, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, you know what? Probably so. Which I thought that was good because it was like, you know what? It would be a surprise if he actually did actually punch that person. I'm like, wait, I know you. You were in issue, see this issue of Miles's book or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it. Next up, the last War of the Realms tie-in that I read, because I know there is a couple of more in a couple of other books, and then it looks like you've read it also, is War of the Realms New Agents of Atlas.
Right. So what's funny is that the cover, spoiler alert,
misleading,
doesn't exactly happen in this book.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely on the misleading side. But we don't know if it's misleading, if it's just a tease of what's going to happen in the next issue. But it's pretty interesting to see this group of Asian heroes from very different countries trying to work together and trying to establish a common purpose. It's funny that they have a little bit of technology still working, even though everyone's network is supposed to be all hacked.
Right, which going back to issue 5, that gets solved.
Right, but I think at this point, they're like, well, we only have a little bit before they discover us or something. Let's try not to stay on too long. So,
right.
But yeah, it's funny that and I'm sure you understand this. It's funny that they kind of rally around various uses of spam. You know, that's an artifact of World War II.
Yes, I've caught that. I'm like, huh, okay.
Right. And the spread of spam and its many different preparation styles around the Pacific Rim. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and it's pretty true to life.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
yeah,
so to see that made a lot of sense. You know, given that, you know, they can't exactly go to the local grocery store in the midst of the war.
Right. Although, well, actually, no, it still holds, because I was about to say, although they had that nifty teleporter that was conveniently used, they could have teleported somewhere to, you know. But then again, one, it could have been limited range, and two, I mean, the whole Earth's kind of been taken over, so there's no.
All right, so basically, I'm inspired to get some spam and make some spaghetti fried rice, some spam musubi. Shout out to Always Be My Maybe, the movie on Netflix from Randall Park. Of course, from the movie from Randall Park, Ali Wong, and guest appearance by one Keanu Reeves. They also have a bit of
Daniel Day Kim also.
Yes, they also have a bit of spam preparation in there too. So I appreciated that. But yeah, you know, I kind of thought it was you know, coming off the heels of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, you know, it's still kind of cool to see that.
Right. So yeah, but the plan there is pretty much, well, Amadeus Cho, to get to the meat of it. Amadeus Cho is kind of sort of in charge of this, even though Jimmy Woo is kind of around. And while things at first didn't go according to plan, because everybody was still kind of doing their own thing, you know, Amadeus kind of gets everybody together at some points against their will, to say, hey, we need to all work together, which is the same thing Jimmy Woo was saying, you know, and to enact this plan, then which, you know, doesn't quite go off, you know, doesn't quite go off because they don't really get along until the spam part, which, you know, hey, spam, bringing everybody together. And of course, Shang-Chi gives a couple of teaching moments to a couple of people in the process.
Right. What's funny is that so the crux of Cinder's plan is to melt the ice caps, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, the majority of the countries in Asia have large coastlines or islands, and are going to be devastated by you know, the melting of the polar ice caps in such a rapid fashion. So they're looking to stop that, and that's their their goal.
Right. Which they do what they end up doing while Amadeus is being bait.
Right. He's basically the distraction. And it's kind of nice, like you mentioned, that Shang-Chi's like, look, these young punks don't, you know, they may hold weapons, but they don't know what they're doing. So let the master of Kung Fu step in and show them a little something. So I kind of like that too, because, you know, I don't know if this is part of the push for Shang-Chi. I originally thought
I'm just going to go ahead and assume it is.
But the first push, remember, was when they made him an Avenger.
Yes.
And I
feel like that was not necessarily pushing that, just whoever, I think, what was it, Hickman? Whoever, yeah, Hickman, wanted to write them. I don't have any knowledge of that. You could be right that it could have been a push, but there was nothing really saying as much at the time.
Right. The only reason why I bring that push up is that was such a wide-ranging story, and Shang-Chi actually had a couple of solo moments in that. And
actually, it was criminally underused.
Oh, of course. Well, it was such a wide-ranging cosmic story. There's only so much you can do with the kung fu fighting guy.
Right. Oh, right. You remember they Godzilla-sized him?
Well, that, and they also had him. There was a point in time at that particular resurgence in the character's history. They had him go and teach Spider-Man. You know, like literally teach him a form of kung fu for Spider-Man to use.
Right.
And, you know, they actually highlighted that. You know, and they highlighted the fact that, like, it used to be that Iron Fist was the guy that they would bring in to like spar with Cap, but this time it was Shang-Chi.
Right.
So it was interesting to see him at that point, but now he's getting, as we've already acknowledged, a secondary push in advance of movie, in conjunction with the movie announcement.
Right. And actually, not just, since you mentioned that, there is actually been a slight of a push fairly recently, because Shang-Chi was in Domino's book, teaching her, and also kind of a love interest, but which kind of did not go anywhere. But yeah, that
Hot Shots book, right?
No. The book.
The solo.
Yeah, the solo book.
That's right. I remember reading it. So
yeah. So like I said, it was good to see Shang-Chi there, because, and then of course they brought back some of his rogue gallery in the process, and it all.
Right.
And then
so we're getting a little bit of a slow push, and obviously this is like putting him in a major crossover book with the War of the Realms is going to give him some more give him some more of a spotlight.
Right. Yeah, and actually, speaking of Domino's Hot Shots, the White Fox, who is in this issue, shows up there, but I didn't get a chance to read.
Okay.
Read it yet. So that being said, I think we've burned that one out. We can go on to, if you got something you want to push out, go for it.
I want to talk about a one-shot. It's not necessarily tied into anything. I
haven't read this yet, but
that's current. Yeah. I won't spoil too much of it. It's Incredible Hulk, The Last Call #1. This is one of the 80th anniversary books that Marvel is putting out, where they're reuniting some of their creators that put together some of the more important or consequential runs of a character, in a character's history. In this case, it's Peter David and Dale Keown. And just very quickly, the premise of this is that it's the last call. Without spoiling too much, I'm going to ring the spoiler bell because I'm going to touch lightly on it.
And also, if you plan on reading this book, from what I understand from an article, trigger warning.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, it's something new to talk about trigger warnings, and I guess if you don't understand what you're getting into, I guess you could be triggered by it. So at the end of the day, there are serious issues being discussed in this.
Yes.
It involves a phone-in hotline where Bruce Banner is seeking help, and there's some stuff that happens. Some discussions about Banner's predicament at a particular time of year, and it kind of goes through his history with Betty Ross, and there's another there's a villain that appears not quite out of nowhere, because they are this particular villain is teased right at the beginning, but it's kind of brought up as a plot device to show that the Hulk isn't always bad. And sometimes we have to remember, as much as we love the Immortal Hulk, and we love how dark and really spooky that book is. There have been times when the heroic Hulk was just as popular, just as I guess just as magnetic, drawing you in to read them every month. So it's just another version of the character. So it's kind of a nice reminder from Peter David and Dale Keown, but it is a pretty somber. There's some pretty somber issues dealt with in this. So like Roddykat said, and properly so, trigger warning. And it was a pretty interesting read.
So, is there any indication of a possible timestamp?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, okay. Not specifically. You can't place it in between what issues, but you can kind of figure out when.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because David actually drops a couple of notes right at the beginning.
Okay, cool.
And I think it's actually on that. You know how we kind of stopped harping on that first page summary.
Mm-hmm.
in the case of a one shot like this, that first page summary is huge,
right.
because it sets the stage. And if you don't read it and you just read the book, you're like, well, when did this happen? But if you read it, you're like, oh, this is exactly where it fits in, without even really knowing like what span of issues it might kind of drop into.
Because you would think I would assume it would be like during his run, but that doesn't necessarily have to be.
It's kind of during his run.
Okay. Which was because I was thinking, given what I've seen, glanced at in the article, I was like, well, this totally could have gone before his last death at the hands of Hawkeye. But
oh yeah, no, absolutely, this is well before that.
Right. So that was my thought going, but like I said, I'm still gonna read it at some point.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth the read.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, what do you got?
Man, I wish I had read Marvel Team Up. But I did not. So, you know what? Deceased #2. I actually read more than one DC book this week. Fans of the show know that I don't really read much DC, although I have been lately. So it's not for nothing. In fact, I have another one that I need to go through, probably maybe rapid fire, because I don't really have much left. I think the bulk of it's you. So Dceased #2 is to give a quick recap. It's DC's version of Marvel Zombies, if you want to get reductive about it, but they do it in a fairly interesting way. Like the last issue was basically the anti-life. So I want to call him Thanos, but that's not his name. Darkseid, again on the hunt for the anti-life equation, kind of gets what he wants, and Cyborg was being used for that, but it kind of gets away from them, and Darkseid gets dealt with, and Cyborg somehow makes it back to Earth, where he ends up spreading this version of the anti-life equation through, amongst other things, social media and the internet. Oh, what is going on? So everybody's looking at their phones and TV, and so the virus spreads through all of that. So it's actually, stay with me, a techno-organic virus.
Haha.
Yes, exactly. Not unlike the one that, if you're a Marvel fan, of. But yeah, like I said, it spreads, causes chaos. People turn into essentially zombies, even though this issue says that they're not zombies. There's something different, but
right, they're not feeding.
Except for they kind of are. As this says, they're not exactly feeding, like in that sense of the word. They're spreading. Right. Is how they explain it, which it still looks like they're feeding. I don't care what you call it, and it still looks like zombies, fast zombies at that. So, but it is actually an interesting read. It's because I am normally not one for zombie shit.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we have a news story later on about the particular zombie focused or zombie surrounded world, but that's something happened there. We'll get to that then. This one I've been all right into. Like I said, it started off on a cylinder I didn't expect, and some people, there were some casualties already, and in this book issue there were a few more casualties, and including one that I thought had happened at the end of the first issue, but come to find out, that was not a casualty. Then, and actually may or may not be a casualty. Given the last page of this issue, may or may not be a casualty, finality. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of things happen. Spoiler bell.
Spoiler bell.
Like I said, a couple of heroes get dealt with, including looks like Aquaman gets taken out. Let's see. Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Black Canary and Green Arrow are all on a camping trip. Green Lantern gets taken out. but he still kind of possesses his ring at the time until he gets finally taken out by Black Canary, who inherits his ring some kind of way. So she is now a Green Lantern. They all meet up with Superman, who's with
So
Lois.
she's Green Canary.
He is Green Canary now. Yes, she don't want it at first, but Superman's like, "Nah, we need it because shit's going down." So they all go back to the planet where Damian, Robin, and John and Lois were kind of there because they, after everything broke out, was like, well, we got to get somewhere, and they was like, well, let's get to the planet so we can go start broadcasting and find anything. Then that's when Batman finds them and it's like, no, you won't want to do that because this is how things spread and blah 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 blah. So he tells all of them and that. Oh, and by the way, I'm dying because I got bit, because I got bit in the first issue, which I thought he was done for, but he's Batman, so he found a way to hold it off for a little while until presumably the end of this issue, where apparently he has something that Damian's going to eventually get, but apparently he's going to get it earlier than he expected. Obviously, this is an Elseworlds Elseworlds book, so there's nothing tying this to continuity. That should be apparent by the number of deaths and whatnot that's been going on in this. So yeah, it's been pretty good. If you're basically kind of I said earlier that this is kind of DC's Marvel Zombies, but it's not necessarily, it's not being handled in the same way as Marvel Zombies. So, and given what I just said, should have made that quite clear, because they're actually taking this as a relatively serious, quote unquote serious story, more than the Marvel Zombies, did.
Right.
But it's a good read, so you should definitely go check that out if you're so inclined with it. It's pretty good, and that's Tom Taylor who did the Injustice stuff. So if you liked Injustice, you might enjoy this. Yeah. How much you want
to? Looks like you don't have too much left.
Nope.
I wanted to move to rapid fire, so we could just wrap it up.
Do it.
Spinning it up now. All right. You want me to run through mine? You want to take care of yours?
Let me go ahead and get mine out of the way. So Young Justice number 6 is my last book. So a couple of things. So this basically wraps up the arc in Gem World. The team has been, the team pretty much neatly wrapped up the bow there, basically, but they did it in a way that some folks didn't care for. But on their way, thinking they were going to get sent back to Earth, the powers that be sent them to another I guess world or dimension or whatever the case may be, which will explain why they end up in, because we had a news article last week or the week before last, is they end up in Batman Kingdom Come. I mean, not Batman, but they end up in Kingdom Come universe. So they're kind of doing an Exiles type deal where they're traveling to different multiverses. But they got exiled from this one thinking they were going home because they did something they should not have done, and some folks didn't like it. But before all of that, like I said, it was a nice and neat little wrap up to the story. I'm like, okay, well, that was that. So now we're getting into whatever else they're doing. And Bendis, as I said in my notes, Bendis is writing again because there was something that was explained. I was like, oh Lord Jesus, that's how you explain how that person got their powers, which has kind of been alluded to before. But I'm like, is that the only way you know how to write in stereotypes? Anyway,
okay.
Well, I say it's not necessarily a stereotype, but this is something that was like, really, you can't. Do you really have to have characters, have some kind of silly backstory?
Now I'm gonna look at that and see.
Yeah, if you may not see it the way I see it, or you may see it because it's Bendis, but I don't know. But like I said, it was a nice neat wrap up to the story going into the next one, and
right.
alluded to a couple other things inside, and a few different explanations kind of came out in the process of it, because there was some stuff that wasn't known throughout this whole arc that gets known now.
Mm-hmm.
So done. Next.
All right, so we're gonna rapid fire my books. I've got a few books still to talk about. The first one is Batman number 72. So we are leading up to Batman number 75, the big change that Tom King has teased. This issue is actually pretty useful for readers who have been very confused up until this point about the whole Nightmares story. It actually recaps what has been going on during Bane's implementation of his plan. But what you initially think is being told from the perspective of Bruce Wayne isn't. Spoiler. It's from a Batman, but not the Batman you think. So, anyone who's been keeping track of Batman recently will have a very good idea of who I am referring to. And ultimately, it's an effective issue in that kind of get a quick recap of what's been happening and someone's analysis of it. So it's actually a pretty useful issue to read. You could probably read this and then just keep going to 75 and be okay. It's kind of like that Doomsday Clock issue that PCN_Dirt was telling us, like, all right, you can just start reading from here and forget about all the stuff that happened before. So that's kind of what I would describe this issue as well. What was that?
The wrong sound effect. Don't worry about it. Going.
What were you gonna try to play to see if I have it?
The dun dun dun.
Oh. There you go. So Black Cat number 1. I would cue up the Janet Jackson track from Rhythm Nation, but this was a continuation of some of the stories that have been pursued, detailing what's going on with the Black Cat in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man, where they've established a thieves guild in New York, whereas before we kind of only thought the Thieves Guild was in places outside of New York. But maybe my Marvel history has got a few holes in it, or is lacking in that regard, because the last time I remember any sort of stories with the Thieves Guild was like circa Jim Lee X-Men, like when they introduced the Thieves Guild in New Orleans.
Right. Or
Gambit and Belladonna. Remember that?
Yeah, or in the animated series as it got recapped.
Right. So it's an interesting expansion on that particular part of the thieves mythology in the Marvel universe. So we have kind of like the logical continuation of that, and we have the reappearance of a character from the Black Cat's history. So all in all, it's a decent first issue to start off the story with, but I'm pretty sure it's going to have a tough time reaching an audience. That's just me. I don't know if the Black Cat really has that kind of following. So that's just I'm hesitant to
it probably won't push news either, because let's face it, the folks at comic book shops, especially behind the counter, kind of focused on pushing stuff that didn't need pushing. Let's if we're being honest. And as you said, this was going to have an uphill battle anyway. So I can't expect this was. I mean, hey, maybe it's going to be something. Any more surprises? I
mean, it's got cool. I mean, the main cover is the J. Scott Campbell cover. It's pretty cool. But we'll see where it goes from here. Next up is Savage Avengers number 2. So we saw a couple of we saw a Marvel character kind of get whacked in the last issue, but as things are wont to happen, things are wont to do in the Marvel universe, that didn't exactly stick.
It's okay.
What's that?
It's okay.
Exactly. It's just a flesh wound. Yeah, it's just a flesh wound. Um,
Like,
so ultimately, for those of you who did read issue number 1, it is required reading. But just to just to do a quick review, Kulan Gath is back, and if Conan the Cimmerian is involved, it's logical that Kulan Gath is involved. Shout out to the Kulan Gath story in X-Men. Circa John Romita Jr.'s art on X-Men. Some great stuff from back then. I mean, that's kind of the gist of what we have in this issue too, where Kulan Gath's plan is, to kind of resurrect was it the Marrow God, I think it's called, and and he's got to bring he's got to sacrifice the blood of killers and bad people or whatever, and so that's kind of where the Savage Avengers come into play. So there's no official team yet, so we'll see where this goes. It's only issue number 2. Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, number 9. So the last issue had, I'm going to ring the spoiler bell, and a little bit of a trigger warning as well, because it's a very, it was kind of hit a little too close to home, where there was a bombing at Mary Jane's concert. That's the band that Gwen and Mary Jane and I think Betty Brant in the Earth 65 universe. That's they play in a band called the Mary Janes, and they were in concert and a bomb was set off, and it hits a little too close to home. It's a little too realistic, and ultimately it's been set off by someone you think you recognize, but you don't, because it's not the character you thought might be stalking Gwen. It's kind of a wolf-like looking guy, but you could easily confuse this character with a version of the Jackal, but that doesn't quite exist yet in her universe. Instead, it's the Man-Wolf, and it's a very it's kind of really backwards interpretation. But then again, in this universe, the Punisher was a cop.
Yeah, and Daredevil was crooked.
Exactly. So ultimately, you kind of have to let that go. But it's still. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But you said I wasn't expecting that name, because from what I saw, it looked like the Beast.
I thought it was the form of the Jackal.
Right.
So you'll catch up, and when you catch up, you'll be like, oh, okay. But ultimately, this book has still got a ton of heart in it. That's one of the reasons why I really dig reading the Spider-Gwen character. It's got a ton of heart, and thank God that Takeshi Miyazawa is drawing this. It's so awesome. So I always shout him out, because he brings such a steady hand to this book, art-wise. Uncanny X-Men number 19 is the last book I'm going to discuss tonight, and it involves what Emma Frost has been up to this whole time. Apparently, she has been taking over the latest version of the Hellfire Club, and there's a number of former X-Men who are kind of allied with her, and we see what she's been up to with the ONE, the Office of National Emergency, the government group that has been messing with mutants for a while. To be honest, there's so many of these groups nowadays, and so many of the anti-mutant stuff that that's been going on has kind of been very confusing and hard to keep track of. Ultimately, we kind of find out what the Black Queen, she's taken on the moniker of the Black Queen now. So that's what Emma Frost has been up to, and it looks like this is all going to come to a head very soon as this series starts to wind down, and Powers of X and House of X are going to pick up over the summer. And that's it for me. So now I guess we're going to get to our clicks of the week.
And we got one and a proxy from our not here hosts, in that Tim's is Justice League number 25. It's a good pick. As we've already stated. And I guess by proxy, it's Dirt's also, because as he said, he didn't read anything. Or he read one book, but
he tried to read Justice League. It put him to sleep. But the poor guy was tired. All right. It was okay. I liked Justice League number 25. I liked the premise, but I think what excited me the most was War of the Realms number 5 for me this week. I just got excited reading the issue. I just, as we mentioned earlier, the art of, and it was a very small panel of the world tree growing where it was growing, just really, knocked my socks off. And it was really like a third, like a third of a page sized panel.
Right.
So
yeah, you look at it, it's like, oh, that's new.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with War of the Realms number 5.
Okay, it's just a good pick. I mean, yeah, it was definitely action packed as it's been, so that's no surprise. And it's definitely one that is kind of up there for me. That weirdly enough, Young Justice outside of the Bendis-isms. But weirdly enough, I'm going to go with Deceased number 2.
I don't blame you. That was actually, I skimmed that. That was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was a good read, especially like I said, if you read the first issue, I'm like, okay, it comes from that, and then just kind of keeps on going. I'm like, there it is. So there are our clicks for you, and now we were going to get into the cinematic news, but first, an ad read, sir.
Our first ad read of the night is for Amazon. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, books, etc., etc. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Click Nation's Comic Book Chronicles free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today. And now we get to the news.
Yes, and when there's an Amazon commercial, it means, hey, let's finish this up quickly. So Black Widow set photos and video teases Scarlett Johansson's MCU return.
Yeah.
Some would argue it's a bridge too late, but you know what? I'm still curious about what the Black Widow solo movie is going to be. At this point, is it going to be a flashback? Is it something that's like, hey, is it an in-between time movie or what? You don't know. But the way they've been doing the Marvel movies, I'm going to assume this is probably going to be a flashback or something. Or maybe they do what they did in the comics and she's actually alive and they cloned her or something. I don't know.
Listen, I'm honestly just glad to see the character back. I'm glad to see her, during the day.
Killed, but hey, spoiler alert.
So I'm just, like I said, just glad to see the character.
Yes. Indeed. Excuse me. Next up.
All right, Chris Hemsworth wants to see Thor with the Asgardians of the Galaxy.
And so we do a lot of other people.
Right. Yeah, that's just excuse me, Hemsworth following up on the endings of Endgame.
Mm-hmm. Which is logical because people are speculating that he'll probably be in Guardians of the Galaxy number 3. Although there was another article that I saw, or probably a day after this or something, saying that he's taking a year off of acting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess because depending on when that's going to lie, that might not happen. May or may not happen, or we'll see. Because I think because I don't think this is until 2020.
Right. We shall see in terms of Marvel scheduling. You know, what's funny is that Marvel is often, announced when certain pictures are going into production, but they very sneakily put Black Widow into production. Didn't tell anybody.
So this article says, and I guess so it's still online, the film is reportedly scheduled to film in production in February 2021.
Right, which gives them a year.
Right. Well, this is for Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Right.
So
that's what gives Chris Hemsworth the year. Yeah.
Which, it could fall into Hemsworth's year. So hey, it works out then. Next up, Marvel concept artist offers an alternative Captain Marvel design. So this is by the way, this is a side point. Captain Marvel coming on Blu-ray fairly soon.
Yes, the 11th, this coming Tuesday.
Yep. And Andy Park, who did a design for the movie version of for Carol's thing, did an alternate pass, and it was put out on Twitter. And if you're watching the video, you can see it.
Right. I mean, he's a graphic artist and costume designer for Marvel, so he's done several concept pieces for multiple Marvel, characters for many movies now.
Right. So it's not quite the Jamie McKelvey redesign, but it kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of a flip on it a little bit, but it is that. Nevertheless, next up.
All right, next up, Elizabeth Hurley. Shout out to Elizabeth Hurley. Is joining Marvel's Runaways on Hulu as Morgan Le Fay. Whoa.
I know. So I believe this is the first time in live action that we have seen this character.
Whoa.
And Miss Hurley still looking pretty good. And wasn't she in Bedazzled? Which was,
yes,
she played the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna say typecasting, but it kind of, So yeah, I have not seen any of Runaways, but I would kind of watch to see how she pulls off a version of Morgan Le Fay.
I've been meaning to start watching it. Finally have access to it, so.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, because I don't have access to Hulu, so. I'm sure it's out there somewhere in some form, but I'm not willing to do that. But anyway, so that's a dope thing. I don't know if it says when she's coming. Probably next season, because I know they do have another season coming. So next up, Jessica Jones faces a new enemy in season 3 trailer, which just came out today, Thursday, the day we record. There was a new trailer that I did not watch. But apparently, Fool Killer is going to be in this season.
Yeah, you heard right.
Yeah, that was the
Fool Killer.
Yes. Which now they've had a version of Nuke in here, so I mean, it's in the first couple of seasons, so that's not, pulling from the pockets there. But and realistically, it kind of started with a showstopper because hey, Purple Man was the first season villain, played to great effect by David Tennant. So where do you go from there? Especially with Jessica Jones, which that's pretty much her greatest.
Exactly. She doesn't have much of a rogues gallery.
Exactly. It probably pretty much starts and ends at Purple Man. So.
All righty, next up.
In motherhood, but that's not necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Next up, the Spider-Man cartoon, Marvel Spider-Man, lands a 3rd season, which has been titled Maximum Venom.
Can't imagine who's going to be the focus of that one. Weird. Mystery. Also, who cares? I'm slightly surprised that this is still this. Well, one, I'm surprised it's still on, and two, I'm surprised that it's only season 3. I don't know.
They rebooted it. Because remember, it used to be Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then they turned it into Marvel Spider-Man because they didn't want to focus on because their initial focus was on like young Power Man and Iron Fist, young Nova.
I think they were still doing some of that in here, but I guess no.
I don't think so. I mean, I've only seen bits and pieces here and there, like on random like whatchamacallit, random plays on the Disney XD, the Disney app or whatever, or whatever's available on demand. So a lot of times they don't have the entire season's worth, so you just go sort of watch, like a random episode or two.
Yeah. Apparently this season that is going on now, which is season 2, will close out with a 5-part Superior Spider-Man story, which, if you know the comic arc, yes, similar.
Interesting.
And this new season 3, will be 2020, so next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they're on their Marvel HQ channel. I have seen them either like marathoning some of the shows or having like full episodes of stuff on there, so you can kind of catch some on their YouTube channel or whatever live stream if they have it. Because I know I've seen like Guardians of the Galaxy had a live stream. I believe they're doing Marvel's event. I think they're doing the Avengers one now, or were doing the Avengers, I guess, leading up to Endgame. So you can check that out if you're really itching for some and don't have Hulu. Or Disney XD or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, next up,
this is who? This is yours.
Oh,
I poked fun at the Maximum Venom title. Remember?
True, it's true. Avengers Endgame directors working on a Magic the Gathering TV show for Netflix. So the Russos getting out there a little bit more, So yeah, they're taking a break from comics to do a comic book card game adaptation. Now, as a fan of the current iteration of the digital card game, well, the digital version and somewhat of the card game, sure, why not? I can't imagine what they're doing now. If you're saying to yourself, why are we talking about this? Because it's not a comic book related. Because yeah, it is. Because they've had Magic the Gathering comic books as recently as a couple months ago.
Right. This is going to be animated though.
Yes.
So it might be a while because animated tends to take a little longer to produce.
Depending on who they get and the house they use. Because there are some folks that can kind of put some stuff out there. And please stop that.
I was about to say just as fast as you were asking, right?
Right, not that fast, but yeah, there's there are some houses that can put out there and just fairly quality work. But yeah, it's probably going to take a minute for this to go, because obviously, you got to get some things out of the way and down the line. So yeah, there we go. So Netflix with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and it's going to be anime flavored. So yeah.
Right. So we'll see how it looks. If it's going to be like a Yu-Gi-Oh thing or not.
Well, there's according to this, saying it probably looks like it's going to be more anime inspired. So it's probably going to be probably more anime than a typical Yu-Gi-Oh thing. So we'll see. I don't think they're going to go that route with it.
Oh, with the cards?
Yeah, it was like
I've seen an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh or two, and they got the cards.
Oh yeah, I love me some Yu-Gi-Oh, but yeah, they're just going to play it straight off like, oh no, this is the world, and Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering does have a deep lore, so
right,
it's not like they have to go that route, because they'll just pull from their lore, and there are people that are really fanatical about their lore or a card game. So go figure. Anyway, move right along.
Next up, Arrow's Stephen Amell has revealed which DC villain he'd like to play, and he'd like to play.
He ain't got the belt. I already know which one it is. But he doesn't have the badges for it. I don't think. Superman villain.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Ain't nobody kneeling before Stephen Amell. But anyway.
I mean, again, he'll have a growl. He has his growl because of his Arrow thing. But I can't see it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he could pull it off. I don't know.
He doesn't have that jerk faciness from that.
Oh no, he kind of does. But he just
no. But that actor who did the first Zod,
but he doesn't have the gravitas that actor pulled off either. So it's just a different kind of the look is I don't know. Anyway, wait a minute. Jadon Assad is currently being played by Arrow alum Colin Salmon. He's pretty good. he played Walter on Arrow, like back in the first couple of seasons, if I'm not mistaken, and he's on Krypton now.
Okay.
So sure, that's an actor. I'm stopped.
Okay.
Next up, Arrow promotes Joseph David Jones to series regular for final season. So this is the version of Connor Hawke, if I'm not mistaken, that was introduced in Legends of Tomorrow, like probably first, second season. So I'm not quite sure how they're working this out. But so yeah, so he was on Legends of Tomorrow as Green Arrow's son in a different timeline. And it hadn't been seen since, but apparently they found a way to pull him into pull his character back into current season. Maybe that has something to do with what happened in the Flash. Maybe that has something to do with what happened in the. Maybe it has nothing to do with nothing. It just happened to be somebody in the world, and it just so happens to fall into place. I don't know, because I haven't been watching none of those shows lately, but I need to catch up. Regardless, he's a series regular for this shortened season. That, now that I think about it, Amel's not even going to be on anymore, I think, because I know he had already quit. It's on a couple of other people. So either its time is coming short or it's already gone and he's off the show already. But nevertheless, there you go. Oh, wait. It says the most recent season of Arrow revealed that Connor is actually the son of Benjamin Turner, a.k.a. Bronze Tiger. At some point beyond season 7, the Diggles will adopt Connor and raise him alongside their other son. Because that happened. Yes, they had a daughter before. Now they have a son. So there you go. Next.
All right. Next up, it's official. Robert Pattinson is your new Batman. So Variety has confirmed with Warner Brothers Pictures that Robert Pattinson is in fact the latest actor to go under the cowl.
So I know there are people out there. See how it is.
Sorry to interrupt.
And wait and see as how we got the current presidency. So that didn't work all that well. And we've had several Batmans that were said had wait and see on them, which turned out to be terrible. Now, I'm not saying he probably couldn't pull it off. I'm saying I don't believe he would pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Don't at me. I don't care.
Yeah,
but
I don't have a lot of faith in this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hell, remember Christian Bale. It's all, and I'm not saying he's not as bad. Bale was as bad as, like say Kilmer or, Clooney. But
Bale had his moments.
Yeah. Oh no, Bale had his growl. That's all he had, and it wasn't.
Well, he had his moments. Like, does it come in black? I like that. That was good.
That wasn't even whatever.
I actually like that. I like that delivery. I like that sequence. They're testing out the prototype Batmobile.
I feel like if Keanu could have delivered that line a little bit better than that, we all know he's not really, he has range, but he doesn't have range.
I understand.
Anyway, so this is what we have.
I was about to say, it's funny that you say that he said that he has a growl. I'm like, I thought the growl was the worst part.
Well, that also goes into my point.
Yeah. I thought that was the worst part of Bale's Batman's. So.
But yeah, hey, guess what? There you go. So, and again, I don't. This I haven't. I don't know. Whatever. We're taking too long for that. He doesn't seem all that big enough to be playing the guy. But then again, this is supposed to be like possibly an earlier Batman, possibly a year one. We don't know.
We don't know what he's going to look like after he does some weight training. So
if he does some weight training now,
I would think he would.
Well, I would think so too. All I know is if he starts sparkling, I'm out.
I would laugh. I honestly would laugh if they did that as an inside gag and they used it as one of the bat gadgets as like a strobe effect. Like where he threw a strobe, like a mini strobe light to like help blind his opponents. And
that would be amusing. Yeah, that would be amusing, but no.
But
I feel like at this point he'd probably be like, "Oh, do we really have to do this?"
I'd get a kick out of it. I'd laugh.
Mhm.
Anyway, moving on.
Yep. Supergirl movie aims to shoot in early 2020, maybe. So,
Okay.
so apparently we're getting a Supergirl movie, and it might start filming next year. Oh, cool. You know what? I should check and see if this is irrelevant to the point. I think it is on DC Universe. The other one, the first one with Ellen Slater.
Mhm.
But regardless, that's something we don't have to do right now. So there was another Supergirl movie. In case you didn't, if you're of a certain vintage and don't know, or you're not of a certain vintage and don't know. Anyway, moving right along.
Man of Steel 2, Matthew Vaughn has revealed his scrapped plans for the film. So apparently, the director confirmed talks in 2017. They've since fallen through, and he is not attached to the project now. However, Matthew Vaughn has revealed his plans for Man of Steel 2, which would have lifted from a trilogy he and Kingsman creator Mark Millar proposed in 2008. So, yeah, it's weird. Moving on.
All lot of words, huh?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. Wonder Woman 84 poster reveals new costume, and it is
It's shiny.
fabulous.
It's shiny.
Yes. So to the delight of many folks on the internet, yes, it is. And as this, I've seen like 2 articles on this, and it's funny because this IGN article, as you see here, wow, Swamp Thing canceled already by DC Universe. Huh.
Yep.
Thought they had done that already.
I think that dropped today.
Yeah, and because it didn't sound like that was even going forward. But we're getting off subject. Wonder Woman 84. You know, Gal Gadot looking pretty great. As normal, got her new suit, golden thing, which is an offshoot of a comic book inspired run of hers, of course. Mm-hmm. But there was a Newsarama one, which was kind of funny because they were like, "Yeah, this is for comic fans. This also looks like what Emma Frost had on during some thing of X-Men or whatever." Really? I'm sitting here like, okay,
really?
Yeah. Yeah, if you go see Newsarama's article on it,
okay,
you'll see that. I'm like, oh, sure, I guess that's one way to take it, but you know, it is what it is. Anywho, so that's the thing. That poster came out today. Go bounce in all its glory.
All right. I was gonna say, I forget. Was it the Kevin Smith? Was it Fat Man Beyond I was listening to today? That where they were talking about this, and I think this is Kevin Smith and Mark Bernard, and yes. I think they were joking about how if Gal Gadot has to spin in place to put that shiny uniform on, I think that would make a lot of Linda Carter era Wonder Woman fans very happy.
Or even if she did it in the first one, yeah, totally. That would be dope. Actually, wait, did she? No, she didn't. I was about to say, did she not do that already? Yeah.
She didn't.
That would have been great. Anywho,
Next up, Warner Brothers has revealed that Lupin III creator Monkey Punch's Aquaman collaboration. So Monkey Punch is the pen name of famed manga artist Kazuhiko Kato.
Mm-hmm.
And he's collaborated on a drawing of Arthur Curry Aquaman shortly before his passing. So the art was shared on Twitter by Warner Brothers Japan.
Yep, if you're watching the video, you can see said artwork. Yeah, right there, which did get used in the movie, or at least a version. Well, it's the same version, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
clearly the two side by side don't look the exact same, but it's there. So that's cool. Yes, right, because Kato-san had recently passed, and I guess they dug that up some kind of way. Star Trek's William Shatner reveals that if he'd return as Captain Kirk. And Shatner says, sure, he would. A well-written thing, not unlike Star Trek V, which he directed. I certainly would, absolutely. And then it goes into, hey, the fact that he died in Generations, and Shatner goes on to say that he wouldn't star in a new series, but wouldn't rule out the possibility of a cameo. Which, given what's out, like we know the Picard series is coming, and Discovery is still a thing, and I would imagine they would go for a young version of Kirk if they were going to put him in Discovery. Because we've already seen Pike, and Spock's already there. A version of Spock's already there, so I don't think, unless Pet Shatner is on there for not Kirk reasons, I don't know, or some kind of time travel thing, which they've done. Either way, it's it's 2 cents. Moving right along.
All righty. Next up, Masters of the Universe movie. Summoned by the power of Grayskull, a new release date.
Yep.
So apparently,
sometimes if you care about this,
I'm sorry.
I said if you care about this, sometimes watching the videos. So
yeah. So the release date is March 2021.
Yep. So look forward to that. Possibly no Dolph Lundgren attached as per yet. Thank goodness.
You get a nice story to wrap up the cinematic news.
I do. Yes. I still need to watch this, actually. And that is the Dungeons and Dragons.
Wait. You haven't watched this yet?
I have been sitting on this for a few days. Yes. Huh. Oh, wait. Swamp Thing cancellation tied to North Carolina accounting error. I thought I saw something about some North Carolina thing. So I guess it had to do with this. But I feel like there's been other things that contributed to Swamp Thing not being around. Either way.
Because he doesn't make anybody's heart sing. That's a wild thing. But anyway.
Yes. Nice try, though. I'm going to applaud you for that one. Well done. All right. The Dungeons and Dragons cartoon finally gets an ending and a car ad. So if you're of a certain vintage, you are aware of the fact that on Saturday mornings there was a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon very loosely based on the role-playing game of significant note. And I say very, very loosely because it was, which was produced by TSR, Marvel Productions, and Toei. I happened to have the set not too, just within arm's reach.
Nice.
But it never ended. It ran 26 episodes and they didn't get home. So basically it was a group of teenagers who went on a ride at an amusement park, ended up in the Dungeons and Dragons world. They don't specifically say any place in particular. They meet up with this dungeon master person who keeps disappearing on them. He's basically their Yoda, like almost very literally. Gives them their weapons and they go on adventures against Tiamat and Venture, who
Tiamat's no joke. So
right, yeah. With Tiamat being an actual Dungeons and Dragons thing, I'm not sure if Venture was, but he was the main villain. Tiamat was just there screwing stuff up, but they fought him every now and then. Like I said, 26 episodes. They never got home, but apparently this car ad does something about that.
It's really well done. It's surprisingly well done. Like, it's the last place you would expect to see these characters, and I immediately forwarded the video to friends of mine who I played Dungeons and Dragons with back in the day.
Nice.
And they were all going absolutely that-ish crazy.
Right, who I assume are familiar with
the cartoon, yeah.
Yes. Shout out to Diana the Acrobat, who is obviously not a character and not a class in the Dungeons and Dragons mythos, but was in the cartoon because she was cute. Anywho, but yeah, as you could also well know that this was not something that was done here in the U.S. because it probably wouldn't have been done. I think this is in so Sci-Fi Wire notes Dungeons and Dragons.
It's Brazil.
Parker.
It was Brazil, I think, because they're speaking in Portuguese.
It says Dungeons and Dragons is still remarkably popular in Brazil. That's not saying, again, I'm assuming that's the cartoon, which is like from 84, 85, if that. 1984, 85. Yeah, from 83 to 85, excuse me. So I was right. Yeah, so go figure. It is a new live action Brazilian car commercial from French automaker Renault.
Yep.
Time you heard from Renault.
They're big in other places.
Clearly, I would hope so, including France. I'd hope. But anyway, that is it for cinematic news. I will definitely watch that. I don't know what kept me from actually watching the thing, because this was right up my alley.
All right, so we're going to transition.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Nice.
Over to comic book news.
Uh-huh.
Was there any clickbait you wanted to touch on before we moved on to this?
I mean, there's some stuff in there. Jim Zub did a TED talk about being raised by dragons. He's speaking of Dungeons and Dragons. He's real big in Dungeons and Dragons. He even writes books for them, and you see him on Twitter talking about his thing. So there's that. There's Anatomy of an Anti-Hero talking about Lone Wolf and Cub, which I know we do a separate thing, but it's always good. There was a thing. Yes, Living in the Shadow of Next Wave, looking at the making of Magic of a Comic Book Classic. That's Next Wave, which is awesome. You should definitely go read Next Wave. It's great stuff. Warren Ellis banger. Let's see. Somebody watched the two Incredible Hulk movies and had some thoughts. And there's a superhero playlist that apparently somebody put together with a bunch of songs.
Okay.
Amongst other things, click the section chock full of stuff this week.
Cool. I'm gonna have to listen into that TED talk and the Anatomy of an Anti-Hero. Read that. So that's pretty cool. Alrighty. So our first story in comic book news, Jason Aaron's final Thor story is kicking off in August. So in the wake of War of the Realms, longtime Thor scribe Jason Aaron, who's also written most of War of the Realms, is beginning the final act of his God of Thunder epic this coming August. So it's only a few months away. This news is coming out of Marvel's official solicitations for the month, which reveals that Thor number 16 will be the kickoff of Jason Aaron's final Thor story.
And I'm sure will be a sad days for both Agents 70 and anyone else who's been along that ride.
It's been a long ride. I think it's been going on for the most for most of for the majority of the time that we've been on the air, that we've been recording.
Yeah, like definitely before I got on. So
I think so. I mean, I'd have to go back and check the calendars, but
it says here, Aaron began his long-running saga in 2012 with Thor.
Yeah,
under number 1.
There it is.
With Isaac Ribic as doing the art. So
there it is. Because I've been reading Thor, and I was one of the only members of the panel who was reading Thor on a regular basis back then.
Yeah, you would definitely be glowing about it too, in spots.
Oh, absolutely. Well, especially when the God War stuff really starts to pick up.
And I think we kind of got sold on at least part of it when Thor's
Secret
Wars Thor's miniseries. I think we all loved the hell out of that one.
Yes. That was a great concept. I was just filing those comics away, to be honest. That's so fun.
I actually may go back and read that, basically, if you have not read it, Thors was a Secret Wars miniseries, and Secret Wars pretty much had a bunch of multiverses, multiple things all mixed together. But regardless, Thors was the story of the Thors being a bunch of detectives, or like the Green Lanterns,
Right, they're like a police force in the world that Doom had created.
Right, but in this case, it read like homicide life on the street,
and
it was glorious. It was great stuff. So, I can't remember how it ended, but it doesn't really matter. But if you ever get a chance to go read that, it doesn't really matter the other Secret War stuff, because that's kind of sort of self-contained within the world, so you really don't need to necessarily know what's going on around it to get into it. But yeah, if you ever get a chance, go check that out. So we get back to this news and say that I'm going to take all of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I didn't even. Is this like? Did this drop today or?
No, well, I think the last couple might have dropped today, but no, this has been within a couple of days.
I just haven't been closely monitoring the interwebs for this, so this is cool stuff.
And actually, the first one was, I think, might have been a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Which what we're talking about is, and I have a beef with this first one. Wait, what happened? What the hell? Did they change it again? They certainly did. Oh, yeah. So here's the thing that Newsarama has done. So let me go ahead and get into the story. So there is a this may be the mysterious Marvel event that that was on the books coming that no one knew about. That I think was for not December, was it for August or for December? I can't remember. But regardless, there was an event that was coming that nobody really knew about, and this might be it. We don't know. And it's called No Compromise, No Mercy. I believe Bleeding Cruel has an article saying it could be a follow-up to another follow-up, which was of No Road Home, the Avengers tie-in. And we've been getting a bunch of teaser images with people who are going to be involved with this event. So it started off with Blade. Then it was Monica Rambeau. So here's what Newsarama has been doing, right? They use the same article, but it's been adding to it.
Right.
When I saw their article, they would put out on Twitter, it says Monica Rambeau joins No Compromise, No Surrender. No Mercy. But it linked to this, and it had Blade on it, not her. And she wasn't even on the article when they did that. So I think she was first, and then the Blade came on, but they didn't. But they didn't mention her in the article, but they had it in the tweet. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Monica Rambeau, but it went to just Blade. So all they're doing is basically adding those other people. So all these other articles that I was going to go through, it's kind of unnecessary now because other people have been teased with this event. So it's Monica Rambeau, Blade, Wiccan, Angela, Hellstrom, and Winter Soldier.
That's weird.
Yeah, so so that's a lineup.
Which of these things don't exactly belong with the other? Hi, Bucky.
Right. Or any of them for that matter. Well, actually,
no, everyone else has some magic-based. Even Spectrum is, even though it's kind of sci-fi.
That's I would argue that.
The one that doesn't match is Bucky.
I don't know. I would argue that Spectrum doesn't either, but sure.
Oh no, she doesn't match either. But the one that doesn't match the most is Bucky.
True. I agree with you there. So, we don't know we still don't know anything about the plot or anything. We just, got a bunch of teasers that, hey, these few folks are going to be there. But apparently on June 11th on marvel.com/reveal, all will be revealed. So stay tuned. Next week is when we find out a little bit more about what's going to happen. I should have asked him about that. Why? Because maybe he knows something ahead of time, but probably not.
It's an announcement that's going to happen on Marvel's website. Then
right.
It's probably still under wraps.
There could be some buzz about it before, before then. But like I said, Bleeding Cool was kind of like saying that it could be a follow up to No Surrender, No. I keep wanting to say No Surrender, No Retreat, and that's a movie. But No Road Home, the Avengers thing event that we just had, which would kind of make sense given that Monica Rambeau and Blade were both a part of that. But the rest of these people, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, we'll see. So next up, you can take the one after all of that.
Fear the Future. These mysterious Powers of X Mutants. A new Powers of X teaser shows 3 characters, 2 of which have been depicted in previously seen art. who appear to be amalgamations of existing Marvel mutants, along with the phrase "fear the future."
As opposed to fearing the Reaper.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, Powers of X will be out July 31st, and which, I mean, there's been stuff said about this event. I know there's been articles about it already. For some strange reason, I've chosen not to read them, including kind of this one, because this basically looks like a Infinity Wars, but for mutants.
Awesome.
Oh, no. Did I break it already?
Good.
Because if you look at this picture, I mean, just saying. Anyway, we'll see. And I'm actually, we've talked about what's Hickman's done in the past, and we'll see what he's going to do for the mutants on this one. I may actually end up checking this out. Marvel has quietly introduced the third eye of Agamotto. We talked about this before we started recording. And apparently, so I saw this article and was like, wait, where did the other Eye of Agamotto come to? Like, was it because the first one got broken up and they remade another one? And apparently, according to Agent 70, one shows up, which he thought this one shows up in Tony Stark Iron Man from this week, correct?
Correct.
But apparently, according to this article, one gets alluded to or comes out in Savage Avengers #2, which Agent 7 also read, but he didn't see that. So I'm thinking maybe it was something alluded to in there that wasn't quite clear, or something.
Very strange.
Yes, and not the Doctor, who's not exactly there.
Who's normally the wielder of the original Eye of Agamotto.
Right, and I know Dr. Voodoo had one when he was Sorcerer Supreme, or he had it when he was Sorcerer Supreme, but I assume the same one had been given back. And he's, so apparently, like I said, there's 3 of them. And then don't think it even says where the third one is in here, as you tried to figure out. But as you said, it's in Tony Stark's book. So go figure why they didn't mention the second one.
Very strange.
There was an article about it that we just missed. I just missed. Who knows? Regardless, yep, that's the thing. There's 3 of them. Maybe they all come together in some sort of Triforce.
Next up, Marvel's editor-in-chief is teasing a more permanent comics deaths. Yeah, right.
I kind of believe it. I feel like again, my crusade for about the Bill Fostering of folks. I feel like that's the whole thing, even though we got his nephew now. But regardless, CB Cebulski said that death might start being a little bit more permanent inside the Marvel Universe. And I think he goes on to say, I don't want death to be used to boost sales, which it was, or to be used as a shock value, which it was. That's me editorializing within this. Or so people, oh God, Johnny Silverman's dead, or Wolverine is dead, because he dies and always comes back, knowing they're going to come back, which we do get. We have said on this very program many and plenty of times. If we choose to do it now, we're going to add a little bit more weight and permanence to this decision. So we will see if that definitely holds up. And it goes on to say that pretty much every major character has died, which is true. To have come back at some point. Or specifically, I guess, main Avengers, and Hawkeye. All right. Move right along. Marvel hires Jeremy West as manager, licensed publisher. So congratulations to him, to whoever this person is. Apparently, he used to work for Scholastic for 6 years, and now he works for Marvel, and it's a dream come true. Sure.
Nice.
Whoever this person is.
All right. So our next story.
Marvel, please. I'd like to give Marvel that.
Same. The next story is a repeat of a previous story, so I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Tom King promises Wally West is primed for big things after Heroes in Crisis.
I don't know how I did that. I didn't know how to miss that, but whatever.
It happens.
Yeah.
So last week we saw the finale of Heroes in Crisis, and we were trying to figure out what the hell is going on with Wally West, what they're going to do with him. And Tom King spoke with CVR Comic Book Resources earlier this month, and said that there's big things in store for Wally West in the future.
Yes.
And his story's far from over.
Yep. And speaking of Heroes in Crisis, Tom King clarifies how a DC hero died, because apparently, which it was a question that we actually had coming out of that, because a bunch of people died, but only a few came back. Apparently, there is actually one death, and apparently Tom King said that it was a big oopsie by the way the page was written. So somebody asked him on Twitter, so did Wally kill Lagoon Boy? And Tom King says, absolutely not. The scene takes place inside Lagoon Boy's mind as the Speed Force hits him. It's a great question. That page is not written well. A big regret of mine. So Lagoon Boy is not dead?
Okay.
I guess.
But a bunch of people are.
Or Lagoon Boy is dead, but not by. Because it still doesn't necessarily clarify the fact that whether he's dead or not. Or maybe I'm dense.
I'll read it, I guess, at some point.
Because he's basically saying, okay, this is his mind. So if it's in his mind, that means he's not dead. Or the scene that we see him dies, but that still doesn't clarify the fact that whether he's actually dead or not. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, and maybe we're putting too much time on those, because that's the whole ending was a head scratcher, and we should move along as quickly as we can.
It happens. Alrighty, next up, DC Inc. The imprint announces Teen Titans Beast Boy graphic novel and has revealed the cover.
Teen Titans.
Although the first book in DC Inc.'s Teen Titans series hasn't yet released, the imprint has already announced another entry, Beast Boy.
Yep, and if you're watching the video, you can see what presumed to be the cover of said book.
Okay.
Sure. Next up, Batman Damned. Remember that book? Finale pushed back on schedule again. I did not know this was still even coming out. Because it's been, what, 3-4 months?
Something like that.
Or I feel like it's been longer than that, because I think this thing started at the beginning of the year, and it's been 5 months. Or I don't know. Anyway, so there's an update from the 30th that says that Batman Damned number 3 has slid back to June 26th. This is the 5th rescheduling of Brian Azzarello's and Lee Bermejo's finale issue, with the previous update moving it to June 3rd. So, wait, does this must have got canceled? Because this one was more than 3 issues. It should have been more than 3 issues.
No, it was only supposed to be 3 issues.
Oh, really? Huh. Well,
you remember the first one was with the genitalia?
I do remember that, yes, and then they slid the second one so they can make some changes to it, possibly because they had more genitalia in it. And again, that was still a bunch of months ago, and I don't know if anybody on the panel was reading it anyway. I mean, outside that first one that we all read.
Right.
So, regardless, it's coming to an end soon. And
all right. Next up, DC announces a Joker Harley Criminal Sanity Black Label series. Just like Batman Damned, this is also going to be a Black Label series.
And like the Beast Boy, just like the Beast Boy one that we just talked about, written by the same person who's doing that one, Kami Garcia.
Okay. It's supposed to run for 9 issues.
Yeah, which will team with artists Mike Mayhew and Miko Suyan.
Alrighty.
So yeah, they apparently can't keep Joker and Harley apart. Which, Deceased 2 had a scene with him, and I was there thinking to myself, like, you could have just called him. You have to go see him, especially what we knew what was going on in that book. Anyway, so yeah, this is another, like I said, Black Label imprint book, and guess what? Just send around Joker and Harley. I'm not even going to go into the plot. Next, I guess some sad news. Maybe I don't know. Boom's WWE title canceled after 25 issues. Yeah, sure. I don't think anyone on the panel was reading it, or especially the more wrestling engaged folk on the panel was reading this book. So not that means anything, but I guess it was a good run. I don't know. Who knows? Regardless, next up,
big spoiler bell. Oh, what were you playing?
That was the site, which is autoplaying.
Spoiler bell. So there is apparently a shocking twist rocking the Walking Dead comic in issue number 192, which was released this week on Wednesday.
Yes, and in our back channel, the only person who was actually interested, as far as I know, in that book asked, in that world, asked if anyone else had read it, and I'm pretty sure it was crickets.
Yeah, I mean, we're all familiar with it. We know some of the main characters, but none of us have been reading it for 192 issues.
Or watching the show, for that matter.
That's a lot of issues.
Yeah. So apparently, hey, spoiler alert, Rick Grimes died.
I rang the bell. No worries.
Yeah. Rick Grimes is dying. Or Rick died at the end of issue 192.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait. No, it says issue 191 ended with an unexpected shocker as the triumphant Rick Grimes managed to avert war between Alexandria and the Commonwealth, only to be shot by Sebastian Milton, the spoiled son of former mayor Pamela Milton.
Yeah, some punk kid. It's a stupid way to go out. But,
yeah, the outlook was already grim at that point, and they should waste no time before establishing that Rick is indeed gone. Sebastian shoots Rick several more times. Damn, before fleeing, leaving Rick to bleed to death in the lonely hours until sunrise.
Crazy.
And to be discovered by his oh wow, so it goes further. Rick's body was discovered by Carl, which also answers the question I had, which was that, wait, did he turn? And sure enough, yes,
he did. Yeah,
forcing his own son to kill his dad. Now, if that's not overkill, I don't know what is. But hey, that's the thing. End of an era, I guess. Which I guess mirrors. Oh shit! I guess it does mirror the show.
To a certain extent, yeah, but they don't want to focus on Rick Grimes as much.
Right, because he was no longer on the show, and I believe there was some elaborate. I don't know if he died, but the thing.
Well, no, they wrote him off.
Yeah, they definitely wrote him off.
They wrote him off, but they definitely killed Carl, which is different.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they killed Carl on the show.
Oh, weird.
So Carl is still.
Wasn't it?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't that a while ago?
It's been some time, I believe.
And I think he and Michonne had another kid.
You lost me there.
I think, and she's not on the show anymore. Something like I don't know.
You lost me there.
Yeah, well, I probably lost him, so I don't pay attention to that show, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, that's the thing that happened in the comics. Moving right along. 2019 Russ Manning Awards nominees announced. The prize presented annually since 1982 at San Diego Comic-Con is given to a comic artist who early in their career shows a superior knowledge and ability in the art of creating comics. I will not go through the nominees, but congrats to everybody nominated.
Right.
It's an honor to be nominated, I think. So,
and last but not least,
I kind of wish I had gotten this one, but never mind.
Why is that? Because you wanted to do the mimicking?
Yep.
Go ahead. I had already queued it up.
Guess what? They're bringing Micro Machines back. No John Machida to be heard of. And I was going to actually try to do a serious speed thing, but and it's late.
That's not so bad. I mean, Micro Machines returning to stores in 2020. Hasbro is teaming up with Wicked Cool Toys to bring a classic brand back to store shelves. Micro Machines, one of the hottest toys that hit retailers throughout the 80s and 90s, is hitting the gas once more and speeding back into the spotlight beginning in 2020.
Yeah, nowhere near John.
I know. Come on, I'm not a speed reader like that. Come on.
Neither am I. That's why I flubbed it. But regardless, it's not comic related, but it's kind of cool regardless. This is, again, if you're of a certain independence, you know of Micro Machines. You also know the commercials.
Yeah, I knew it more for the commercials and also for the they were still creating Micro Machines Star Wars
I thought so, yeah.
Miniatures up until relatively recently, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why I'm kind of curious to know when they actually stopped making anything.
And I don't believe it
as a line, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like it says here, but it says throughout the 80s and 90s. So at some point it stopped.
Right. But like I said, as recently as a year or two ago, I could have sworn I saw some Micro Machines Star Wars stuff.
You sure that it wasn't like a Matchbox thing, or not Matchbox?
It could have been Matchbox, but you know what? Come to think of it, it could have been Matchbox, but I could swear
Matchbox is doing it. It might have been Hot Wheels. So, because I don't even see Matchbox that often. I see more Hot Wheels than anything. So, ain't no telling. Somebody was still out there. But regardless, hey, that's the thing.
Alrighty.
And that is it. Hit us up with one more ad, sir.
Last ad read of the night for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Blue Apron, fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron. Always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today.
And as we come to an end of another episode of this here Comic Book Chronicles, we would like to thank you all for coming out. We will be back next week, same time-ish.
Yeah, no movie protocols next week, no?
No, because I think the next one is Far From Home. Well, not Far From Home, and I don't think that's...
Yeah, that's not until the end of the month.
Right. So, no, we think we're clear unless something comes up.
Well, come to think of it, whatchamacallit, I think it's because July 4th falls on a Thursday.
Right.
So I think we may have holiday protocols if no one's around. But
because I think I got my ticket already and it was for that Tuesday. So
right,
yeah,
that's what I mean.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's what I mean.
So that might even be an issue then. But stay tuned to our individual Twitter accounts for that piece of information.
Righto.
Pretty sure we've already mentioned. And that information is where you can find me, Roddykat, at Roddykat on Twitter, and News Nerds Need on Twitter, News Nerds Need Reddit. You can find me as CB Caps, the Instagram. Agent _70. What is going on there? Thank you. Agent _70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all of those umbrella sites in there. Tim DOGG98 at that right there, and also the Click Nation. That's DKLIQNATION on Twitter, theclicknation.com, same spelling, and of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's writing his face off. We will be back next week, like I said. Same bat time, same bat channel-ish. We start recording 9:30 I might as well go ahead and say that because 9:30-ish. We're weird like that. You love us still. This has been the Comic Book Chronicles, and we are gone.
Peace. One.
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe it's Dr. Doom?
What's on your evil mind?
Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired, Mr. Stark?